Value and importance. What really matters? The difference between value and importance that nobody explains. Before beginning, I must remind you that this is a reflective essay intended to invite the reader to adopt a new perspective and a new plan of action to change their lives. It should not be considered a source of information or an academic document. Introduction. Imagine you are lost in the middle of the Sahara Desert, with nothing but your normal clothes and $1 million diamond. What is more important? What is more valuable? Is the diamond important? Is the diamond valuable? I want you to think about this dilemma, which will help us understand these two concepts that we often treat as interchangeable, but which reveal aspects of reality we don't normally perceive. The goal is not to change dictionary definitions, but to help us understand these concepts in a simpler, more intuitive way, making them more practical in our daily lives. What does importance measure? This is possibly the strangest question I've ever asked myself. No one had ever even suggested to me that importance was a measurement. After all, there is no unit of measurement like the meter, the pound, or the degree Celsius that allows us to see how much importance something has. This is because importance, unlike other forms of measurement, is subjective, that is, the amount varies depending on each individual. Now we can infer that importance is a measure, even if it is subjective, because we can qualify and compare things as more important and less important, and that is how we know it is used as a form of measurement. Now the question is, exactly what are we measuring? And before answering, I would like to ask a few others to see if we arrive at the same conclusion. Why is it not important to be 5 minutes late, but it is important to be an hour and a half late? Why is missing 1 day of work not as important as missing 15 consecutive days? Why is it important in customer service to always be kind to customers? Is it important to be the first to see a movie premiere? Why? I could be wrong, but I am convinced that importance measures the level of change. Importance. Importance measures the level of change or the capacity to avoid it. In theory, we could speak of two types of importance: positive importance, which promotes change, and negative importance, which maintains the status quo. These labels of positive and negative are not related to beneficial or harmful effects, respectively, but rather to how they affect change. Keeping your job is a form of beneficial negative importance, while losing it is a form of harmful positive importance. In reality, no one makes this distinction of positive or negative importance in their daily lives, unless they work in risk management. The only thing we perceive about importance is whether it helps us obtain or preserve good things and eliminate or prevent bad things. In the desert example, the value of the diamond seems insignificant compared to the possibility of losing one's life. The diamond may be worth $1 million, but if it doesn't help us survive, it has little importance. Value. Value, like importance, is a subjective measure unique to each person. But unlike importance, which depends on personal context, value depends on our affective preferences, the bonds we establish with reality, and the emotions and sensations they produce in us. Although value can be based on objective facts, such as a bank offering a better return, it is more common to observe subjective preferences. Not to mention that these objective values often have subjective origins. For example, an interest rate is partially derived from the confidence people have in investing their money. The relationship. Because of its ability to maintain or improve our affective bonds with reality, it is common to observe that things that are important are also considered valuable. For instance, in the desert example, preserving life is not only important but also valuable. On the other hand, there are things we consider very valuable. However, if it is proven that those valuable things lack the capacity to create or prevent change, it is impossible for us to consider them important. In the desert example, the diamond's value is enormous. However, if it doesn't help us survive, its importance pales. In short, everything important is valuable, but not everything valuable is important. Subjectivity. The problem with both value and importance is that, because they vary from person to person, they are truly difficult to share. The easiest way to do so is through context environments with common values and importances that we all follow. For example, if I start working at a company that considers commitment and creativity as core shared values, they will let me know upon joining through interviews, awareness talks, and other methods. They will likely establish mechanisms that reward these values and punish practices that hinder them. Even so, we will always see someone in that situation who, even understanding that those are the most important common values, will look for ways to avoid commitment and use uncreative shortcuts to do the bare minimum. But I am sure there will be people who disagree with what has been stated. For example, everything important is valuable, but not everything valuable is important. Things like family heirlooms, values like honor and respect, or sacred objects like religious symbols might not have a clear value or importance. Recall that both value and importance are subjective, but that doesn't mean they don't have a real impact. Sacred symbols are important because they represent the ideals, customs, and beliefs of a group of people and allow them to identify with one another, in addition to being constant reminders of the code of conduct and ideas manifested to society. Family heirlooms may or may not be important, depending on whether they exert changes in the people who possess them and the meaning given to them. For example, a landscape painting might not be important on its own, But if this painting represents the conviction of the painter or the previous owner and inspires others to make changes in their lives, then the painting becomes important to whoever views or owns it. Values like respect, honor, and creativity are important because they mold the behavior of people and the community towards something positive. Conversely, if our values were deceit, betrayal, or abuse, our behavior as individuals and as a community would be seriously affected. It is worth mentioning that importance and value depend on the moment they are perceived. In the desert example, the diamond has little importance if we cannot survive the desert. Once out of the desert, it can become an object that literally changes our life, but that is only if we survive the desert. You might tell me there are things that aren't important but are valuable, like fire safety protocols, and once again we return to the point of subjectivity. Safety protocols are important because they allow for the protection of lives that would surely be lost without them. A person who knows they are important but doesn't believe they are valuable doesn't actually consider them important, they only have the label of important without it truly being so for that person. Often, these people rediscover their importance when, through negligence, they neglect these measures. And now that the topic has been understood, I hope this information is of value and importance to you. Remember, the power is yours.